stories more from me.
Nice
Later.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. You're watching Sky News. Still to come, what's in the morning papers with Carl and with Tira. We're back in a moment.
Experience a live casino like no other. WilliamHill.com/live casino.
Don't change me.
Don't hide me. Don't mask me. Fit me.
New Fit Me, the first gel foundation from Maybelline, New York. Waxes and fillers can mask your skin. Fit Me has none. Our first translucent gel-based formula merges seamlessly. Looks and feels 100% you in 12 shades. And for every Fit Me foundation number, there's a concealer and powder that fits. Fit Me, customized makeup system. Get your free mini foundation online.
Maybe it's Maybelline. I got you.
The new KFC Hot Shots Variety Bucket. All your usual favourites and new Hot Shots for those little individuals.
Help me. Inspire me. From me. For me. Hug me. Is me gets me at Christmas.
I could really do with a snack.
Yeah. No. Get in the bowl.
You get in the bowl.
M&M's. Bring 'em all home.
Really? Couldn't find a bigger bowl, huh?
Prepare to be inspired with Sky Arts this November and December. As we present a star-studded roll call.
Pass me the loofah. No one can stand in my way.
Here come the good times. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
I've had an idea for a different kind of talk show. Welcome to Masterclass.
Can you take me a little further?
Did I really used to look like that?
Join me, Mariella Frostford, as I open a new chapter of Mariella's book show.
You are presenting yourself with a gigantic challenge.
I would say start again.
It's a world of inspiration for everyone.
We've just seen something that thrilled us.
Happy days.
You're watching Sky News. Let's update you on the breaking news tonight of George Entwistle standing down as Director General of the BBC. Well, we've got some pictures that have just come in of him arriving home tonight, saying a few words to the media. Let's take a look and listen to what he said.
My family now, so it would be nice to be left with some privacy. Thank you. Would you have gone earlier, Mr. Entwistle?
So, very brief, followed by the news crews to his home, having made that statement, of course, at New Broadcasting House. Followed all the way to his front door. No escape for him, I'm afraid.
The truss can be repaired.
Bearing it with good grace until he got to the front door. And I think that's a fairly emphatic finish to his BBC career. Well, we're joined now by Carl Arrindell, who's the Islam Channel's chief political correspondent, and author and journalist Tira Shubart. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Welcome. Very quickly, you've got some sympathy from Mr. Entwistle there being followed all the way to his front door.
I mean, he's a... Yes, I think that he's a very decent and honourable man, and I think there's been a whole series of circumstances, and we're only hearing part of the story now. And I think we're all looking forward to learning more about what happened.
And he's done the decent and honourable thing?
I think that he's done what he needed to do at this stage. I have to say that I do feel somewhat for him. I think there is a now seasoned process of sending the wolves after anybody who has been targeted. And I'm sure, as you were suggesting, that he's a decent and honourable chap. He's probably trying to follow with procedure and ended up very rapidly in this position.
Yeah,
Yes.
indeed. Well, let's just actually remind you first of what the front pages of the Sunday papers have been making of it all, and we'll start with, well, perhaps the leader of that wolf pack, the Daily Mail, or Mail on Sunday, rather, leading with the resignation of George Entwistle. The paper saying that he was forced out after admitting he was unaware of the BBC report that wrongly implicated former Tory Treasurer Lord McAlpine in child abuse claims until the day after it was put to air. Lord McAlpine, of course, strenuously denying what he said was seriously defamatory accusations. Well, Mr Entwistle said that quitting was the honourable thing to do. That's the lead for The Sun, but its headline, perhaps with a slightly different complexion, going with bye chump. The Times saying Mr Entwistle had lost the confidence of Lord Patten, chairman of the BBC Trust, of course the man who'd put him into that job as Director General. Independent calling Mr Entwistle out of touch, out of his depth and out of a job. Indeed, the first editions of the paper coming in before the announcement of the resignation, but clearly they saw the way the wind was blowing. The Observer reflecting that he was forced out after only 7 weeks in the top job. Also reflecting there the comments of Jonathan Dimbleby saying that the BBC is rudderless. On the front of the Telegraph, an SAS soldier jailed for possessing a war trophy pistol that was actually presented to him by the Iraqi army. The Express, an urgent probe into new 4G mobile phone technology amid warnings that the mast could black out television signals. And The People, picturing the Top Gear presenter Jeremy Clarkson on holiday in Italy. And The Star has a story about Craig Revel Horwood and his, well, dancing out of Strictly. We shall have a look at that. It's only my Saturday job, he reflects. But quite a nice Saturday job after all that. So let's see what both Carl and Tira have made of out of touch, out of depth and out of a job. I think you're going with the Indies assessment of this story tonight. And there's so many of these first and second editions here, I've got to go all the way back to there to get the BBC in crisis. Yes, and, well, we were discussing the fact that anyone that listened to John Humphrey's interview of him this morning, you know, one just wondered how much longer he could stay in post. It was, you know, it was excellent bit of journalism, and you know. Well, from John Humphreys. From John Humphreys, yes, and a coup de grace. And it was a coup de grace, and it was quite painful to listen to, I felt. Well, I agree it was painful to listen to, and it seemed to me as though he'd been given an instruction to sort of go for the jugular. I have to say, the hint in one of the articles today that Entwistle was bumbling and stumbling, I'm not surprised. John Humphreys was really on form this morning and not giving him any movement. But was that another failing of George Entwistle, not to prepare for such, you know, a trial by Humphreys, as some people have put it, that, you know, he knew those things would be put to him and he should have had a defence in place? Yes, I mean, he should have. And he came across as, and he readily admitted a couple of things that were, you know, quite shocking, that he hadn't been aware of the Newsnight report beforehand, and that he hadn't been following Twitter as well. Yeah, and he wasn't aware of the Guardian's front page report indicating that maybe they'd got it badly wrong. And in fact, Twitter comes up again and again on this story, and something that... Well, I think that crucially Entwistle was new in the job. 7 weeks is not that long. He was not prepared. He was definitely not expecting to be met with that sort of confrontation. And yet, this was a man who was in a very senior role at Newsnight. He was an insider to that degree, knew the programme processes, the editorial guidelines, what you should do with these various stories. That's what's got a lot of people scratching their heads. I mean, Jeremy Paxman tonight, who obviously worked with him, saying that a very honourable man's been sacrificed. Yeah. Precisely, and one has to ask the question, why is it that we seem to be in a sort of season of seeking blood at every point? This is a chap who's just arrived in the job. He's obviously had competence. He was chosen for good reason, and suddenly he's now sent off packing. With the hounds chasing behind him right to the front door. Right to the front door, and interestingly, the Mail on Sunday uses that very term, bloodbath, at BBC. And I suppose that's an indication that, you know, even though Lord Patten may believe that George Entwistle's departure actually clears the decks, it may well result actually in more recriminations and navel-gazing.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. I mean, I think this is the start of another process of bloodletting.
I'm afraid that is probably going to be the case. But, you know, the fact that he had he was chosen to have, you know, I have no doubt he had the skills to be Director General in many ways. But I mean, you also have to have that. There has to be a certain level of combativeness, a certain level of toughness, and a leadership that is quite different. Leading a corporation like the BBC is quite different than being editor of a
What at this
news
point,
program.
which Ben Bradshaw and Andrew Gilligan reflected on tonight, and that is that it's too much of a job for one person. That you need to be editor-in-chief, i.e. the top journalist, but you also need to be the top bureaucrat, the top executive, if you like, and the two don't actually marry happily. And perhaps it's time for a division of power, separation of powers at the BBC.
I think that's a fair point, but I think that we shouldn't lose sight of what lies beneath all this. What are the key issues? The issues are very serious proliferation of child abuse that took place with, it seems to all now, with the knowledge of quite a large number of people at the BBC.
Or a blind eye being
who turned a blind eye.
Yeah.
And that Newsnight was, it seems, prevented from exposing that story. And then suddenly, and this is the extraordinary thing, suddenly they've gone rushing out with a story. Although in the first story they had a huge array of testimonies, in the second one they had half-cooked information from the internet and so on.
And we're going to see the consequences
An
of that.
eagerness, perhaps, to show that they were trying to make amends for the failure over the Savile story.
It felt like a rebound story.
Yeah.
It felt like a rebound story,
Right.
yes.
Well, let's take a look at The Sun on Sunday with its reaction, and I guess that's another indication that there are lots of scores being settled against the BBC. We should reflect, of course, The Sun is a Rupert Murdoch paper and has been critical of the BBC on other occasions. Bungling Entwistle quits, bye-bye chump. Is that perhaps rather...
I think
it's very much a Sun headline, isn't it?
It's what you'd expect from The Sun.
But I mean, are they reflecting on perhaps the public's common perception of what's happened?
Look, I think that Entwistle has been hung up to dry on this issue. 2 weeks ago, most of the public didn't know the name of the Director General of the BBC.
Yeah.
The reality is that we've got real criminals are those who perpetrated crimes, and then the other criminals are those who, quite simply, failed to expose it. Birtwistle, perhaps he's bumbling, perhaps he wasn't as well equipped as he could have been in the interview with John Humphreys, but that's not the reason for that.
And journalists always love to have goes at other journalists.
Yeah,
so I mean, I do think there's an
Dog
element
eats
of
dog.
there's a cannibalism element in this as well.
And perhaps that's reflected in the Express. This is obviously the early edition before they knew that he was departing, and it's actually going through the key moments of the Humphreys interview. And actually, when you see it in black and white, there it is pretty corrosive, isn't it?
Indeed.
It's been very difficult to have escaped that, I think.
And then another aspect of this wider story, which we're sort of losing sight of, as you mentioned, is this is the stunt, as Number 10 called it, of Philip Schofield handing.
So it's not just the
Prime
BBC.
Minister.
Yeah, this was this morning, if we remember, with the infamous names from the internet handed over by Philip Schofield to the Prime Minister.
And, of course, the Prime Minister has been praised for his handling of that moment. It was apparently said that he very carefully managed to eloquently sidestep what could have been a serious crisis.
Yeah. It also raises another very serious question about journalism, and that is the reliance that people have taken on social media, Twitter, other social media sites. If it's on the internet, it must be true. Seems to be an approach taken by some people. I read it on X, Y, or Z, so, you know, we all know, but the public doesn't know yet. And this is perhaps another warning that these are not true journalistic tools that you cannot check, you cannot cross-reference.
I mean, it's like anything on the internet. I mean, you know, it's great, but you know, information is all there and the misinformation is all there. The truth is there, lies are there, people's angles are there.
So let me put this to you. Could one of the problems be that the new generation of journalists, if I can put it that way, who are very adept at using the net, perhaps place too much reliance on the internet as a source of information?
I don't think it's a new generation or an old generation. I just think that there's people that have good, solid journalistic practices of all ages and those that don't, and know how to deal with.
But it also raises another question. Let's look at the McAlpine story. The plea of defence, if you like, for the Newsnight team was that they didn't name names. And actually that the social network went off on a life of its own, and he was named in that.
As it's going to in every single story now. I mean, this has happened in every...
So that's the point. It seems to me that today's journalists have to be aware of the implications of anything.
Yeah, I think, in fact, Lord McAlpine's solicitor talked of defamation by innuendo, which is an interesting thing to build into your journalistic law preparation, isn't it? And something, obviously, you've got to consider now when there is another act of publication, even though it's not in a newspaper or a broadcast, if it's out on the internet, has it effectively been published already?
Well, I mean, people have been fined and jailed for things they have put on Twitter, so yes is the answer.
You're watching the press preview here on Sky News of the Sunday editions. Coming up, calls for more flexible working hours, and we'll be taking a look at the rest of the inside pages too. Stay with us.
I'm an agent of Men in Black, but I'm from the future. We're partners. And there's an invasion coming, so really, we need to go right now.
That's why you get to wear the black suit. No? You're gonna leave me hanging?
Men in Black 3, available to rent now in Sky Store.
War is coming to the heavens. I will end the reign of the gods.
Fight for your future! Fight for immortality!
Immortals, available now. Read to Sky Movies.
Hi, I'm Yasmin. I'm doing a trial for Oral-B Pro Expert toothpaste. I'm a bit sceptical. I've just brushed, my mouth's feeling incredibly clean. I'll test again in the morning.
Oral-B Pro Expert. Unlike ordinary toothpaste, it protects all these areas dentists check most, even at night.
Okay, I've just woken up. I don't know if you can hear this, but my teeth are squeaking clean. I love it.
Oral-B Pro Expert. Brushing is believing.
Perfect.
No. Sorry, could we just have a look at that one? Yeah. Ow! That way. Back, back. Quick, quick, in the car. Come on.
It doesn't just happen by magic. Behind every great Christmas, there's Mum. And behind Mum, there's Asda.
What's for tea, love?
I'm Tandy Newton. On set, a makeup artist helps me look my best. At home, I don't need her, or all these jars and bottles for younger-looking skin and an even skin tone. Olay Touch of Foundation. 7 age-defying effects with a touch of foundation. In one step. At home, I prefer one cream.
I love the original BB Olay cream. It's something that I've been using for a long time. You know, with all this talk about, I need my BB creams, like I've already got that box ticked.
More from the Sunday newspapers. We're taking a look at those front pages with Carl Arrindell, who's the Islam Channel's chief political correspondent, and author and journalist Tira Shubart. Welcome once more. We were discussing social media, new media, and press freedoms and journalism, and here we are, brought into focus again on the inside pages of the Mail. Leveson to order press must be ruled by law.
Well, that's a speculation at this point.
Close quotes, yeah. Inverted commas.
Exactly. Yes, I mean, you know, this sort of suggests a kind of regulation on the print press, and that exists for
national newspapers. It says,
yeah, for broadcasters that Ofcom essentially performs that function for the broadcasters. But interestingly, to follow on what we were talking about before, it won't regulate things on the internet It won't regulate blogs. It won't regulate Twitter, and Twitter fingerprints on some of the more negative aspects of this story about the BBC have been all over this story.
Yeah. However, it's interesting that some very senior Tory figures have, if we can use that phrase, come out and got their retaliation in already.
Well, obviously they're preempting Lord Justice Levison's final position, which is expected at the end of this month.
And they seem to believe that this is the way that he's thinking.
Well, there's a strong lobby, obviously, for not interfering with the press. I mean, you have huge lobby groups such as Hacked Off, which Professor Brian Cuthbert of Kingston University heads up. And then you've got the Freedom Network, who are on the other side insisting that it shouldn't be tampering with the press. Now, the parliamentary committee that came out and published a letter this week, I think we're trying to put their 10 pence worth in to make sure that Lord Levison saw sense and replaced what is now demised, which is the Press Complaints Commission, with something which is a lot more robust and has teeth.
But it begs the question, what's the point of an independent inquiry with all that money, all that time, if they've already made their mind up that we'll perhaps not quite accept what he wants us to take on?
Exactly. But I'd still like to say, and the fact that not regulating social network, which, and I don't think it should be or can be, more people read the newspapers on Twitter every day than on bits of paper.
Right, so...
10 million people in the UK every day get their news on Twitter.
Bits, yeah. I mean, that's the argument. Bits of the news, not the whole panoply. That, and you know, it's quite selective, isn't it? So that's the difficulty.
I'm particularly keen on this issue for special reasons. I mean, we're the Islam Channel, and the Muslim community have consistently argued that they have been demonised quite heavily in our national press, that the whole issue of Islamophobia has become an acceptable practice. Yeah. People like Peter Obol at the Daily Telegraph has written quite extensively on it. And there is hope, there is an expectation that there will be something that's a lot more solid than a self-regulatory entity which has been proposed.
To ensure that balance is maintained.
Absolutely.
Yeah. OK, well, let's have a look at the Express on page 2, which is, Clegg, they're calling for flexible working. They've not given it too much in terms of the Whitehall editor, Ted Jury, but let's take a look there. Oh, sorry, I've blown that up. It's a bit too big. He's to enlist the missing million women locked out of Britain's economy due to inflexible labour laws.
Yeah, I have to say, I find this whole story rather interesting. We've just gone through a period where Vince Cable introduced what to some has been a whole raft of slightly repressive legislation to give employers greater control and ability to get rid of their staff if they need to without recourse to tribunals. And then suddenly we're seeing a story of giving greater flexibility to women in the workplace and forcing employers to have to accept all sorts of flexi times and hours. The two things just seem to be in conflict with each other.
Slight confusion, one might say.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And this is from Mr. Clegg, do you think, or just an indication that thinking at you know, the coalition level is getting its wires crossed? I
think it's a headline grabber. It's
right,
it's a nice headline grabber. Yeah. There's one statistic here which I found interesting, which is that they expect, if they can galvanise the missing threshold of women into the workplace, that they'll be adding an extra £42 billion to the GDP. Absolutely.
Now, here's an interesting aspect to, as you were describing, perhaps a bit of demonisation that's been going on of the Muslim approach to life in Britain. But the Mail on Sundays, quoting Baroness Varsi, who was, of course, chairman of the Tory party, now Minister for Faith and Communities, Muslims and other ethnic minorities living in Britain should embrace our way of life and celebrate Christmas in traditional style.
Let me start off by saying, here we go again. It's quite funny that only this week I was in the Cabinet Office interviewing Nick Clegg as he was just about to set off for Manchester to engage with the Muslim community there in a bid to try and understand their problems with anti-Muslim hatred, and he was accompanied by Baroness Farsi and Don Foster. And here we see an article 2 days later. One of the issues I raised with him was the language used by our senior politicians that I suggested perhaps was encouraging the growth of anti-Muslim rhetoric. And here we have a suggestion that Muslims should accept our values. That's the heading. In other words, that they're not accepting our values, that somehow they don't respect Christmas. I find it extraordinary, especially for somebody who has a brief such as Faith and Communities Minister, for her to be coming out with sentiments such as this one.
Right. OK. Finally, Telegraph, page 1. And we're looking at saluting the bravest of the brave down there at the bottom. Of course, we should reflect Remembrance Sunday tomorrow. I'm just going to try and reload that just to make it slightly bigger for us to have a look and see what he's saying. And there it goes. David Cameron today pays a personal tribute to the bravest of the brave. Exclusive article of the Sunday Telegraph, Lest We Forget campaign.
Yes. Yes. And today he saw off the soldiers that had come to number 10 to
the Royal Marines.
The Royal Marines to do their sort of speed march through London to raise money for injured.
Interesting aspect too. Also writing of the pull that the First World War still exerts on the British heart, while setting up plans to mark the 100th anniversary of its outbreak in 2014. And of course, I think it is that slaughter in the trenches that strikes a certain chord with many in Britain today. Thank you very much indeed for your review of the Sunday papers, and we'll see you again soon. But just to remind you that you are watching Sky News, and coming up in the next hour on Sky News at midnight, we'll have all the latest reaction to the news of George Entwistle's departure. And this was him as he took that long and lonely walk back to his front door tonight, no longer Director General. And if perhaps we're wondering how he's feeling, we will certainly know by the way he enters and closes his front door.
I'll be there. I'll be there. Just call my name and I'll be there.
It's the little things in life that make the difference. So we had an idea. We give our Reward Current Account customers £5 each month. It's our way of saying thank you. Reward Current Account only from Halifax, the people who give you extra.
Create your own website with 1&1. Whether you run a car dealership, a fashion boutique, or a dental practice, choose from over 120 business sectors. Select your company name, colour and design. Industry-specific text and images included. Changes anytime. Personalise your content, design, logo or images online. 1&1 my website, 1&1.co.uk.
From eBay with love. Lots of great gift ideas for Christmas. With over 50 million products, I know I can find the perfect gift for everyone. For my other half, Mum, the kids, and all my loved ones. eBay.
Booking tickets in advance on thetrainline.com could save you a heap of cash!
Be sensible. Save with thetrainline.com.
When you make soup, you won't need any of these, because the Cuisinart Soup Maker is all these things in one. It sautés, cooks, simmers, and blends. Then you serve. Oh, you will need one of those. The Cuisinart Soup Maker. Homemade soup made easy.
With Fix and Fall, our customers can fix their energy prices. And if our prices go down, yours will too. To sign up, go to britishgas.co.uk/fixandfall. Look after your world with British Gas.
We'll give you £100 the day you switch to one of our current accounts. Halifax, the people who give you extra.
For a long time, I've had an idea for a different kind of talk show. A show that puts the artists centre stage and explores with them the inspiration and technique of their art. Parkinson Masterclass is that show. I'm going to get the top names from every field of the arts and try to find out why they're so good at what they do.
I didn't think I'd be releasing an album on a major label and being on a massive TV show.
Parkinson Masterclass starts Tuesday at 9 on Sky Arts 1 HD.
The BBC's director